I'm John Cuetara, and I went to Palfrey actually for just 3 years. I was there from 69 to 72. What drew me to Palfrey was that I grew up behind the house that Ned Ryerson, the founder of Palfrey, lived in. I knew him, and I really liked him. He used to play with us when we were kids. And then a lot of my friends from the Cambridge Friends School, where I went to elementary school, had gone or were planning to go to Palfrey, and that's how I got swept into the Palfrey thing. That's definitely true. They were not heavy-handed in their education. I mean, there were the basic requirements like U.S. history and Algebra 1 and Algebra 2 and a couple of years of English. But other than that, we took photography classes and writing classes, creative writing classes, and even at the end of my career at Palfrey, they let me sort of teach a class, which was kind of a unique thing, which you wouldn't see at other schools. The other thing that struck me is I didn't really read much in elementary school, and they didn't force you to read a lot at Palfrey Street, but they left a lot of cool books just lying around, hoping you would just pick them up and start reading them. So I remember one of the first books, I hadn't read, all the Hardy Boys or the Witch, the Wardrobe, and the whatever. I hadn't read all those books, but like the first novel I ever read was Catch-22 by Joseph Heller, a sardonic World War II novel, which just was lying there, and I picked it up and started reading. So I feel like I discovered the world of literature just kind of because they made it available but didn't put any pressure. And they let me teach a course in creative writing and then a literature class, which I called Post-World War II Comic Fiction, where we, read Vonnegut and Joseph Heller and Thomas Pynchon and some of that funny but kind of serious literature. So I really got into literature and writing from that, and then ended up studying literature in college. To Bennington College in Bennington, Vermont, kind of another Palfrey-like hippie school. And one of the reasons I went there is because Bernard Malamud, a writer that I admired much, taught there. So I studied literature with him and with some other, John Gardner and some other well-known writers. But ultimately, I think it began to occur to me that I wasn't going to make a living doing that. So I studied psychology and then went back to school for a master's and a doctorate in psychology. And as I was telling you before, my two brothers went to this very intense day school called the Commonwealth School in Boston. And they learned Latin and they learned this and they spoke a bunch of language. But it was onerous, it was difficult, it was overwhelming for them. The teachers were sort of little Nazis, But I mean, I don't know. It was probably pretty good intellectual standards, but it was very intense, and it wasn't as empowering and choice-driven as Palfrey was. So my brothers learned maybe more than I did in high school, got totally turned off. And I, on the other hand, maybe didn't learn as many facts at Palfrey, but I got very excited about education and thought it was fun and wanted to keep learning. So I think I got turned on to education and they got turned off. I mean, it's quite interesting. I heard some stories tonight that I hadn't heard before. And one of them is this guy, Terry Elajum. I don't know if you met him, but he was wearing a baseball cap and he was a couple of years ahead of me. And he said, he's clearly a very smart guy and he's like an instructor or a professor at Harvard now. But when he was in high school, and he was a smart guy then too, the headmaster of the school, the guy who started the school, Ned Ryerson, called him in to his office and said, Terry, you don't seem that excited about your education here, you don't seem that turned on, you're clearly very smart, but nothing is really capturing your attention. And Terry said, well, I guess that's true. And Ned was going to say, well, maybe you should think about a different school, maybe this isn't the right place for you. Not that he was flunking out, he just wasn't turned on by the place. And Ned said to Terry, well, what are you interested in? What turns you on, And I guess Terry said, well, politics and the school, I'm interested in Palfrey and the structure and the way it runs and organizations. And Ned said, well, I have an idea, but let me think about it. And he called him back into his office a week later and said, I'd like to offer you a spot on the board of directors, on the board of trustees of the school. Going to make you even though you're just a student and the other trustees are wealthy parents and lawyers and doctors, we're going to make you a trustee. And that totally was like a custom-made project to get Terry involved in his education and Palfrey Street. And it really worked for him. I had that conversation with Terry because I was a student trustee like 2 years later. And I said to Terry, I said, so you guys probably like demanded to have a student trustee, or you probably went on strike, or you probably took over the carriage house or something. And he said no, it was all Ned came to him and offered him that thing.
What was Ned Ryerson really like? What as a person? Why would he do something like this?
Yeah, that's a very good question. He was the heir to a large fortune, Ryerson Steel, which was related to U.S. Steel. He came from a lot of money. He went to Yale. He was pushed to do all kinds of things, maybe that he didn't want to do. He had to act like the member of a prominent family. He had taught in a lot of schools, and I think he's just a very creative guy and deep thinker and very sensitive, and wanted somehow, from being a teacher and being a seeker, had learned that you can't just force people to be what you want them to be. You have to figure out who they are and build on that. I'm not sure exactly. It's a very good question. I remember Ned coming to me after I took my SATs, and he said he felt really bad about the results because he had the scores. I had taken the literature achievement test, and I had done really well on the achievement test, the literature achievement test, and then I had done poorly on the math SAT portion. I don't know what I did on the English SAT part. And he said he felt bad about that because he felt like the literature I had learned on my own and the school hadn't given me, and the math, which they should have been teaching me, they didn't teach me. So I did shitty on the math and well on the literature. I hope I said to him something like, well, I never would have started reading and gotten into literature without Palfrey Street. Yeah. He took everything very personally and very responsible guy. Took a lot of responsibility on his shoulders. Oh, I thought of another funny Palfrey Street story. You didn't go to the Cummington School of the Arts weekends when you were there, right? So, had you ever heard of that? So, there's a couple of pictures around of that. Cummington School of the Arts was like an art academy. I don't know if it like had a bachelor's degree, but it was like an art school for people out in the Berkshires. It was a beautiful place. These farm buildings, these little shacks, barns and stuff in the most beautiful part of the Berkshires. And every spring and every fall we had a school trip there. And we just went for like a long weekend, all day Friday, Saturday, Sunday, to Cummington in the spring in April or May, and then in the fall. Just like you didn't have to go, but probably half or 2/3 or 3/4 of the school went. Teachers as well as students. And the reason we went there is Ned was on the board of directors of the Cummington School for the Arts, so he had use of the place. So the teachers didn't really want us to do a lot of illegal drugs at the Cummington School for the Arts when we were there for the weekend. So partly for that reason, they said, but you can drink alcohol, even though we were 14 to 18 years old. You can drink alcohol, and in fact, we'll take your drink orders and go buy the stuff. So you want white wine, you want red wine, you want beer, you want gin, you want bourbon. The students gave the list, and the faculty are old enough to buy it. Went and bought what, you had to pay for it yourself, give them the money. They bought you the alcohol so you wouldn't, do LSD or be smoking marijuana the whole time. I don't know if it's good, bad, or indifferent, but I thought that was pretty cool at the time. So it was just a place. Yeah, it was like a petri dish for creativity, It was just a cool place to hang out. And you liked to go there, because they were nice to you.